The research ship Horizon floated silently in the dark space. Inside, 12 men and women looked at their screens with excitement. They were far from Earth, farther than any human had gone before. Captain Alan Miller stood tall on the bridge. His blue uniform was perfectly clean. He had waited his whole life for this moment. "Are you sure about those readings, Lisa?" he asked. Science Officer Lisa Woods nodded. Her eyes never left her screen. "Yes, Captain. The signal is getting stronger. Something big is coming our way." The crew of the Horizon had been tracking strange energy pulses for 3 weeks. At first, they thought it might be a new type of star, but the patterns were too regular, too perfect. This was not a natural event. "All stations report," Miller said. His voice was calm, but everyone could feel his tension. "Engines ready," said Engineer Joe Davis. "Weapons systems on standby," added Security Chief Frank Bell. "Communications open on all frequencies," said Officer Mary White. Lisa Woods spoke last. "Science team standing by. All sensors at maximum range." Miller nodded. "Remember, everyone, we represent all of humanity today. Let's make a good first impression." The Horizon was not a military vessel. It carried only light defensive weapons. Its mission was to explore and learn, not to fight. The 12 crew members were scientists and researchers, the best Earth had to offer. The ship's computer made a soft beeping sound. "Unknown object approaching," it announced. "Size, approximately 3 miles in length." The crew stared at the main screen as something emerged from the darkness. It was a ship, but unlike anything humans had built, it looked like a massive sea creature made of metal and light. It moved with grace despite its enormous size. "My God," whispered Lisa. "It's beautiful." The alien ship stopped about a mile away from the Horizon. For several minutes, nothing happened. The humans waited, hardly daring to breathe. "Should we try to contact them?" asked Mary White. Miller nodded. "Send the greeting message on all frequencies. Use the translation matrix we prepared." Mary's fingers moved across her console. "Message sent. It contains basic mathematics, our location in the galaxy, and peaceful intentions. More waiting." The crew looked at each other nervously. This was the moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. Are we alone in the universe? Now they knew the answer. "Captain, we're receiving a response," Mary said suddenly. I think they're copying our message format. They're communicating." For the next 6 hours, the two ships exchanged simple messages. The aliens called themselves the Zorans. Their language was complex, but the computers helped translate the basic ideas. The Zorans seemed curious about the humans, but careful. "They're inviting us to come aboard their vessel," Mary announced finally. "They want to meet face to face." Miller looked around at his crew. "Opinions?" Lisa spoke first. "This is why we came out here. We have to go." "It could be dangerous," said Frank Bell. "We know nothing about them." "We've been talking for hours," Lisa argued. "If they wanted to harm us, they could have done it already." Miller considered this. "I agree. We'll accept their invitation. Lisa, Frank, Mary, you'll come with me. The rest of you stay alert. If anything happens, your orders are to return to Earth immediately. Humanity needs to know what we found out here." The 4 officers prepared to visit the alien ship. They wore their formal uniforms with the Earth insignia on the shoulder. They carried no weapons. Miller insisted on this. "We come in peace, so we show peaceful intentions," he said. The Zorans sent a small transport vessel to pick up the humans. It looked like a glowing bubble. Inside, there was nothing to see but soft, blue light. "Here we go," Miller said as the bubble detached from the Horizon and floated toward the massive Zoran ship. Back on the Horizon, Engineer Joe Davis watched the bubble disappear into an opening on the alien vessel. "I don't like this," he told the others. "Something feels wrong." The waiting was hard. 1 hour passed, then 2. No messages came from the captain or the others. "Try to contact them," ordered Steve Roberts, the second in command. "No response," said communications officer. Bentley, I can't even tell if the signal is reaching them. Suddenly, all the lights on the horizon flickered. The computer screens flashed with warning messages. "We're being scanned," shouted Steve. "Some kind of energy beam is hitting us." The scan lasted only seconds. When it ended, the screens showed a new message. It was from the Zorans, but different from their earlier communications. "What does it say?" asked Ben. Steve read the translation aloud. "Primitive species, unworthy prey, resources, required." Before anyone could react, the alien ship released a pulse of energy. It hit the horizon like a hammer. The human ship shook violently. "Shield's failing," Joe Davis yelled. "We can't take another hit like that." Steve made a quick decision. "Prepare emergency protocol Omega. We need to warn Earth." The crew worked, frantically. The Horizon had a special system designed for worst-case scenarios. It could send a compressed data burst through subspace, reaching Earth in days instead of years. "Loading all sensor data, communications, and ship logs," said Joe, adding visual feed from the captain's group. On one screen, they could see what Captain Miller's team was seeing. The images were shocking. The four humans stood in a large, dark room. Around them, tall figures moved in the shadows. The Zorans had multiple limbs and smooth, featureless faces. They were studying the humans like specimens. Miller tried to speak to them. "We came in peace. We represent Earth. We wish to—" One of the Zorans moved forward suddenly. It held something that looked like a weapon. "No, please." Lisa Woods raised her hands. "We mean no harm." The screen flashed with bright light, then showed only static. "They're dead," whispered Ben. "They killed them." Another energy pulse hit the horizon. The ship's systems were failing fast. "Data burst ready," Joe announced. "But we need to get closer to their communication array to piggyback on their signal strength." Steve nodded grimly. "Set course directly for the alien ship. Full speed." The Horizon engines fired one last time. The small research vessel drove straight toward the massive Zoran ship. "Data burst transmitting," Joe said as alarms blared around them. The Zorans fired again. This time the human ship broke apart. But it was too late to stop the transmission. The message was already racing through space toward Earth. The last images sent were of the 12 brave explorers. 12 humans who had hoped to make history with a peaceful first contact. 12 humans who had been killed without mercy or reason. As the wreckage of the Horizon drifted in space, the Zoran ship turned and moved away. To them, this had been a minor event. To Earth, it would be the beginning of something much bigger. Far away, Earth's deep space receivers picked up the data burst from the Horizon. Soon all of humanity would know what happened. And they would not forget. They would not forgive. 5 years passed since the Horizon was destroyed. Earth had changed. The day the data burst reached home was now called Awakening Day. It was the day humanity learned they were not alone in the universe. It was also the day they learned how dangerous the universe could be. Admiral Diane Carter stared out the window of her office on the moon base Alpha. From here, she could see Earth, blue and beautiful. She could also see the massive ships being built in orbit. Warships. "Admiral, Dr. Johnson is here to see you," her assistant said through the intercom. Carter nodded. "Send him in." Dr. William Johnson was a thin man with tired eyes. He had not slept much in the past 5 years. Few scientists had. "I assume you have news," Carter said, not turning from the window. "We've done it," Johnson said simply. "Project Nemesis is ready." Now Carter turned. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands trembled slightly. "You're certain?" "As certain as we can be without field testing." Johnson placed a small device on Carter's desk. It looked like a silver cube with glowing blue lines running across its surface. "This is just the trigger. The main components are being installed on the Retribution as we speak." Carter picked up the cube. It felt heavy in her hand. Heavier than it should be, as if the weight of what it could do added to its mass. "My sister Judy was on the Horizon," she said quietly. "Did you know that?" Johnson nodded. "Everyone knows that, Admiral." It's why people trust you to lead this mission. You understand what's at stake. Carter put the cube down. The United Nations Space Coalition is meeting tomorrow to make the final decision. I need you there to explain how this works, in simple terms that politicians can understand. I'll be there, Johnson promised. But they should know, once we use this, there's no going back. Millions of Zorans will be affected. They killed 12 of us, Carter said coldly. 12 explorers who came in peace. The Zorans need to learn that humans are not unworthy prey. We are the most dangerous predators they will ever meet. The next day, the UNSC Council gathered in the underground chamber beneath New York City. Representatives from all nations sat in a half circle. At the center stood Admiral Carter and Dr. Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, Carter began, for 5 years we have prepared. We built ships. We trained soldiers. We developed new weapons. Now we must decide. Do we wait for the Zorans to find us, or do we take the fight to them? A woman from the African Union stood up. The Zorans are billions strong, spread across dozens of star systems. Our fleet, while impressive, is tiny compared to theirs. How can we possibly win? Carter nodded to Johnson. He stepped forward. We don't need to defeat every Zoran ship, he explained. Project Nemesis targets what makes the Zorans unique, their neural network. Johnson showed a hologram of a Zoran. It looked like a tall, thin creature with multiple arms and a smooth head. From the data we recovered from the horizon, we learned that Zorans are connected to each other, not like our internet, but through their actual minds. Their leaders, the ones we call controllers, direct the others. Without these controllers, the regular Zorans become confused and disorganized. A man from Brazil raised his hand. So this weapon, it kills their leaders? Not exactly, Johnson said carefully. It erases the neural pathways that make the controllers what they are. They don't die, but they lose their identity, their memory, their ability to control others. They become empty. The room was silent for a moment. How many will be affected? Asked a woman from China. Johnson looked down. Based on our estimates of their population, millions, possibly tens of millions. But the regular Zorans, the workers and common citizens, will survive. They will just no longer be under control. Another silence, longer this time. Some would call this genocide, said a man from Canada. Carter stepped forward again. Some would call what they did to the Horizon crew genocide. They eliminated every human they encountered. Our intelligence suggests they're doing the same to other species. The Zorans are expanding, hunting, consuming. If we do nothing, Earth is next. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for trying to communicate with the Zorans, again. Others suggested hiding, building defenses, preparing for a long war. We've intercepted their communications, Carter said finally. They're already aware of Earth. They're coming. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. And when they come, they won't offer peace, they'll offer extinction. The vote was close. In the end, fear won over mercy. Project Nemesis was approved. 3 days later, Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the Retribution, the largest warship humans had ever built. Around it, 20 smaller ships formed Earth's first deep space fleet. All ships report ready, Admiral, said her second-in-command. Carter looked at the faces of her crew. They were young, most of them. Too young for such a heavy burden. Lieutenant Sam Reynolds, she called. A young man stepped forward. He had serious eyes and a strong jaw. Yes, Admiral? Your cousin Jack was on the horizon, correct? Reynolds nodded. Yes, ma'am. You're in charge of the weapon systems on this mission. That means you'll be responsible for activating Nemesis when the time comes. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Reynolds stood straight. I am, Admiral. Carter looked at the rest of her bridge crew. All of you need to understand what we're about to do. This isn't just another mission. This is humanity's answer to the stars. We're about to tell the galaxy that humans cannot be killed without consequences. She turned to the main view screen, which showed Earth growing smaller as they moved away. Communications Officer Kate Nelson, send the message to Earth Command. Tell them we are underway. Nelson, a woman with short blonde hair, nodded. Yes, Admiral. As the fleet accelerated to light speed, Carter thought about her sister Judy. She had been the gentler one, the dreamer. Judy had joined the Horizon mission because she believed in a friendly universe. I hope you were right, Judy, Carter whispered to herself. But I have to act like you were wrong. The fleet disappeared into the darkness of space, carrying with it a weapon that could erase millions of minds. The greatest revenge mission in human history had begun. The Earth fleet traveled for 3 months through the darkness of space. The ships used new engines based on technology the scientists had learned from studying the Zoran data. These engines let them move faster than humans had ever moved before. But space was vast. The journey was long. Lieutenant Sam Reynolds stood in the weapons bay of the Retribution, looking at the Nemesis device. It didn't look dangerous, just a large metal cylinder with blue lights. Hard to believe something so small can do so much, said a voice behind him. Reynolds turned to see Communications Officer Kate Nelson. She had been avoiding him since the mission began. It's not small when you think about what it will do, Reynolds said. Nelson stepped closer to the device. Do you ever wonder if we're going too far? 12 people died on the horizon. We're talking about affecting millions of Zorans. Reynolds looked at her sharply. Are you having doubts about the mission? Aren't you? She asked quietly. Before he could answer, the ship's alarm sounded. A red light flashed in the corridor. All crew to battle stations, came Admiral Carter's voice over the speakers. We are approaching Zoran space. Reynolds and Nelson ran to the bridge. The main screen showed stars and empty space, but everyone knew they were not alone. Somewhere out there, the Zorans were waiting. Report, ordered Admiral Carter as Reynolds took his position at the weapons console. Long-range sensors detect multiple large objects ahead, said the sensor officer. They match the size of Zoran vessels. Carter nodded. Dr. Johnson, what's your assessment? Johnson stood at a special console, studying data only he fully understood. We're picking up their neural network signals. It's stronger here. The Nemesis device is tracking it. Are they aware of us? Carter asked. I don't think so, Johnson replied. Not yet. Carter turned to her crew. This is the moment we've prepared for. Our mission is to reach the nearest Zoran neural hub, deploy the Nemesis device, and return to Earth. We are not here for a prolonged battle. The fleet moved forward slowly. Hours passed in tense silence. Then suddenly the sensors beeped loudly. Multiple ships approaching, shouted the sensor officer. They've detected us. On the screen they saw them. Zoran ships, dozens of them, larger and more advanced than the Earth vessels. They moved with strange grace like sea creatures swimming through water. They're charging weapons, reported Reynolds. Admiral Carter didn't hesitate. Battle Formation Alpha, defensive shields at maximum. The Earth ships formed a protective circle around the Retribution. Just in time. The Zoran attack came fast and hard. Energy beams cut through space, hitting the Earth shields with incredible force. Shields holding at 70%, reported an officer. Return fire, ordered Carter. Target their main weapon systems only. The Earth ships fired back. Their weapons were powerful, designed specifically to damage Zoran technology. But there were too many enemy ships. We can't win this battle, Carter said calmly. We need to get closer to their hub. Lieutenant Reynolds, Officer Nelson, report to Shuttle Bay 3. Reynolds and Nelson exchanged looks of surprise but followed orders. In the shuttle bay, they found a small ship waiting. It looked different from the other Earth vessels, sleeker, with strange patterns on its hull. Dr. Johnson was there, loading the Nemesis device into the ship. This is a stealth craft, he explained. We built it based on Zoran designs. It should be invisible to their sensors. Admiral Carter arrived. The main fleet will create a diversion. You three will take this ship to the Zoran neural hub. 3? asked Reynolds. Dr. Johnson must go to operate the device. You, Lieutenant, will pilot the ship, and Officer Nelson will handle communications and navigation. Carter looked at each of them. I'm not going to lie to you. This is likely a one-way mission. Nelson swallowed hard. The hub. How will we find it? The device will guide you, Johnson said. It's drawn to the neural network, like a compass, pointing north. As they prepared the stealth ship, the battle outside grew more intense. 2 Earthships had already been destroyed. The Retribution was taking heavy damage. We're ready, Johnson announced finally. Admiral Carter nodded. Wait for my signal. When we break through their line, you'll have a small window to slip past them. She left to return to the bridge. Reynolds, Nelson, and Johnson waited in the small ship, listening to the battle through the communication system. All ships, focus fire on Sector 7, they heard Carter command. Create an opening. The Earth fleet fired everything they had, at a single point in the Zoran formation. For a moment it seemed to work. A gap appeared. Now, Carter's voice ordered, launch the stealth ship. Reynolds activated the engines. The small ship shot out of the Retribution and headed for the gap. Around them, massive Zoran vessels fired at the Earth ships, not noticing the tiny craft slipping between them. We're through, Reynolds said, his voice tight with tension, setting course for the hub. The stealth ship accelerated away from the battle. Behind them, they could hear reports of more Earth ships being hit. The Retribution is taking critical damage, came a voice over the comm. Nelson looked back, though she could see nothing but stars. We can't just leave them. We have to, Johnson said firmly. This is the mission. This is why they're fighting and dying back there. As they traveled toward the hub, Johnson monitored the Nemesis device. The signal is getting stronger. We're close. Reynolds piloted the ship carefully. They passed several Zoran planets, seeing them up close for the first time. The alien worlds were strange, some covered in purple oceans, others with cities that looked like giant hives. I'm picking up a transmission, Nelson said suddenly. Her face went pale as she listened. It's in Zoran language, but our computers can translate some of it. What are they saying? Asked Reynolds. They're talking about Earth, about humans. Nelson looked up, her eyes wide. They're planning to attack our solar system, not just to kill us. They want to use humans for experiments. They think we're interesting specimens. Reynolds felt cold anger spreading through him. Any doubts he had about their mission vanished. How much further to the hub? He asked Johnson. Not far now. See that? Johnson pointed ahead. In the distance, they could see a massive structure orbiting a ringed planet. It looked like a giant brain made of metal, with glowing pathways running across its surface. That's the neural hub, one of many throughout Zoran space, but this one controls this entire sector. Reynolds steered toward it, keeping the stealth systems at maximum. Will they detect us when we get closer? Probably, Johnson admitted, but by then it should be too late. The stealth ship approached the hub. They were almost there when alarms blared. They've spotted us, shouted Nelson. Multiple ships approaching. Reynolds pushed the engines to their limit. Almost there, just a little closer. The hub grew larger on their screen. They could see Zoran ships launching from its surface, coming straight for them. Prepare the device, Reynolds ordered Johnson. We'll have one chance at this. The 3 humans braced themselves as they made their final approach to the Zoran neural hub, carrying with them the weapon that would change the fate of 2 species forever. The stealth ship raced toward the Zoran neural hub. Energy beams from Zoran defense ships flew past them, missing by inches. Shields at 40%. Reynolds called out as he steered the ship in a wild pattern. We can't take many direct hits. Doctor. Johnson worked frantically at his console, preparing the Nemesis device. I need 3 more minutes to activate the final sequence. We might not have 3 minutes, Nelson warned. She pointed at the screen. 6 more Zoran ships approaching from the right. Reynolds made a quick decision. We'll hide behind that. Moon, he said, pointing to a small gray moon orbiting nearby. It might shield us from their sensors for a few minutes. The small ship dove toward the moon's surface. Reynolds flew low, skimming just above the gray dust and rocks. The Zoran ships followed but seemed confused, their sensors struggling to find the stealth ship. It's working, Nelson said with relief. They're spreading out to search for us. Johnson didn't look up from his work. 2 more minutes. Reynolds kept the ship moving, using the moon's craters for cover. But then a warning light flashed on. His console. "Engine temperature rising," he said. "The stealth system is overheating." "Can you shut it down?" asked Nelson. Reynolds shook his head. "If we do that, they'll spot us immediately." "1 more minute," Johnson said, his fingers moving quickly over the controls. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. A red alarm blared. "We've been hit," Reynolds shouted. "Rear shield failing." Nelson checked her console. "They found us." 3. "Ship's closing in." Johnson looked up, his face pale. "The device is ready, but we need to get closer to the hub. It has to be within 5 miles of the central core." Reynolds gripped the controls tightly. "Hold on." He pushed the damaged ship out from behind the moon, heading straight for the neural hub. The Zoran ships fired again. This time, a beam hit them directly. The ship spun wildly. "Engine 2 is gone," Reynolds reported through clenched teeth, "running on backup power." Nelson was thrown from her seat by another hit. She hit her head on a metal panel and fell to the floor. Blood ran down her face. "Kate!" Reynolds called, but he couldn't leave his post. "Johnson, check on her." Johnson knelt beside Nelson. She was breathing but didn't open her eyes. "She's alive," Johnson said, "but she needs medical help soon." Reynolds focused on flying the crippled ship. The neural hub loomed ahead, growing larger by the second. Its surface glowed with strange blue energy, pulsing like a heartbeat. "How close are we?" Johnson asked, returning to his station. Reynolds checked the distance. 7 miles and closing. We'll reach the 5-mile mark in about 30 seconds. If we can get inside the hub itself, the effect will be even stronger," Johnson said. "See that opening? It leads to the central chamber." Reynolds saw it, a large door in the hub's side where smaller Zoran ships were entering and exiting. He aimed for it. "They're not going to just let us fly in," he warned. As if to prove his point, a massive energy beam shot out from the hub's surface, barely missing their ship. More Zoran vessels appeared, forming a barrier between them and the entrance. "We need a distraction," Reynolds said. He fired the ship's remaining weapons at a fuel storage area near the entrance. The explosion was massive, creating chaos among the defending ships. In the confusion, Reynolds pushed the stealth ship through the gap and toward the entrance. 5 miles, he announced. "We're in range. You can activate the device." Johnson shook his head. "Not yet. If we can get inside, the effect will spread through their entire network faster." Reynolds didn't argue. He guided the badly damaged ship through the entrance and into the hub. Inside was an enormous chamber with glowing pathways crisscrossing in all directions. In the center floated what looked like a giant brain made of light. "The central core," Johnson whispered in awe. "The heart of their neural network." Reynolds brought the ship as close as he dared. "Now?" Johnson nodded and began the final activation sequence. The Nemesis device hummed, its blue lights growing brighter. On the floor, Nelson stirred and opened her eyes. Where are we?" "Inside the hub," Reynolds told her. "Johnson is activating the device." Nelson pulled herself up painfully. "So this is it?" she said softly. "Millions of minds about to be wiped clean." Reynolds looked at her. "Having second thoughts?" She touched the wound on her head. "No, not anymore. Not after seeing what they're capable of. Not after learning what they plan to do to Earth." She paused. "But I wish there had been another way." "The device is active," Johnson announced. "Beginning final countdown. 10, 9. Alarms sounded throughout the hub. Zoran ships turned toward them, weapons charging. 8, 7. "They know what we're doing," Reynolds said. "They're trying to stop us." 6, 5. Nelson moved to her station. "I'm picking up a transmission. They're begging us to stop." 4, 3. "Should we?" Reynolds asked, suddenly uncertain. 2, Nelson thought of the 12 humans on the horizon, of how the Zorans had killed them without mercy. No. They made their choice 5 years ago. 1. Johnson pressed the final button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Nemesis device released, a pulse of energy so bright they had to shield their eyes. The pulse expanded outward, passing through the ship's hull like it wasn't there. It washed over the glowing brain in the center of the hub. The blue light flickered, then changed to a dull gray. "It's working," Johnson said, watching his instruments. "The neural pathways are being erased." Outside their ship, they saw Zoran vessels stop moving. Some drifted aimlessly, others simply powered down. The entire hub seemed to go quiet. "The pulse is spreading through their network," Johnson reported. "It's moving faster than we expected, already reaching other systems." Reynolds checked their own ship status. "We have enough power for one short jump. We might be able to reach the edge of Zoran space." "The Retribution?" Nelson asked. "The rest of the fleet?" Reynolds shook his head. No way to know if they survived. As they prepared to leave, a second alarm sounded on Johnson's console. "Something's happening," he said, frowning. "The pulse. It's creating feedback in the Q network. The hub's power core is becoming unstable." "Meaning?" Reynolds asked. "Meaning this place is going to explode," Johnson said. "Soon." Reynolds didn't waste time. He fired up the damaged engines and turned the ship toward the exit. "Hold on, this will be rough." The stealth ship limped out of the hub, pushing its failing engines to their limit. Behind them, the massive structure began to break apart. Energy, discharges shooting out in all directions. They had just cleared the hub when it exploded. The shockwave hit their ship like a giant hand, sending them tumbling through space. Warning lights flashed across all consoles. "Engine failure," Reynolds reported. "Life support failing." Through the viewport, they watched as the wave of neural disruption spread visibly through space, following pathways only the Zorans could see. Everywhere it touched, Zoran ships went dark. Nelson stared at the destruction with wide eyes. "What have we done?" Johnson checked his instruments one last time. "Exactly what we came to do. The controllers are gone, their minds erased. The Zoran threat is over." As their ship drifted in space, Reynolds looked at his companions. "Worth it?" he asked quietly. Nelson thought for a long moment. 12 for millions, she said finally. "I don't know. I hope history judges us kindly." "History is written by the survivors," Johnson reminded her. As their oxygen began to run out, they saw a bright light approaching. Reynolds prepared for the end, but then realized it wasn't another explosion. It was a ship. An Earth ship. "The Retribution," Nelson said in disbelief. "They survived." Admiral Carter's voice came through their failing communication system. "Found you. Hang on, we're bringing you home." As the Earthship approached to rescue them, the three humans watched the continuing spread of the Nemesis wave through Zoran space. Their mission was complete. Humanity had answered the killing of 12 explorers with a weapon that erased millions of minds. Justice or vengeance? In that moment, none of them knew the answer. 1 year had passed since the Nemesis mission. Earth had changed again. People walked taller now, looking up at the stars with pride instead of fear. Humanity had faced its first alien threat, and had not only survived, but won. Admiral Diane Carter stood at the window of her office, just as she had done the day Dr. Johnson first showed her the Nemesis device. Back then she had seen warships being built. Now she saw trade vessels and exploration ships. The time for war was over. The time for expansion had begun. "Admiral, they're ready for you," her assistant said. Carter nodded and walked to the memorial garden outside Moonbase Alpha. A crowd waited there, gathered around 12 stone pillars. Each pillar bore the name and face of a crew member from the horizon. Commander Sam Reynolds stood at attention as Carter approached. Next to him was Kate Nelson, now promoted to lieutenant. Her headscar was still visible, a permanent reminder of their mission. Dr. Johnson stood a little apart from the others, looking thin and tired. At ease, Carter said to the gathered officers. Today we remember not just victory but sacrifice. She stepped up to a small platform and faced the crowd. 1 year ago, we launched the greatest military operation in human history. We struck back against an enemy that thought us weak. We showed the galaxy that humans will not be hunted. We will not be specimens. We will not be prey. The crowd was silent. Many had lost friends in the battle with the Zorans. 5 Earthships had been destroyed. Hundreds of good people had died. But today is not just about our victory, Carter continued. It is about the 12 brave explorers who first encountered the Zorans. The 12 who died so that we might know the danger we faced. She gestured to the stone pillars. Captain Alan Miller, Science Officer Lisa Woods, and 10 others who set out to extend the hand of friendship and paid with their lives. We honor them today. And we ask ourselves, have we done right by them? Reynolds shifted uncomfortably. Since returning from the Bo mission, he had struggled with this question. Had they done the right thing? Millions of Zoran minds had been erased by the Nemesis wave. Was that justice? Or had they become something worse than their enemy? After the ceremony, Reynolds found Nelson standing alone by the memorial pillars. Heavy thoughts? He asked. She nodded. I keep thinking about what we saw after. When we went back to explore their worlds, Reynolds knew what she meant. In the months after the Nemesis wave, Earth had sent exploration teams to Zoran planets. What they found was both fascinating and disturbing. Dr. Johnson wants to see us, he said. Something about new developments. They walked together to Johnson's laboratory. The scientist was waiting with Admiral Carter. On a large screen, they could see images of a Zoran world. Thank you for coming, Johnson said. I wanted you to be the first to know. My team has been monitoring the remaining Zorans, and we've noticed something remarkable. He pointed to the screen. It showed a group of Zorans building a simple structure. They worked together, communicating with hand signals. The worker-class Zorans are adapting, Johnson explained. Without the controllers to direct them, they're developing their own ways to communicate. They're forming new neural connections. They're evolving, Carter said. Becoming something new. Johnson nodded. The controllers suppressed their development, kept them dependent. Now they're free to grow on their own. Reynolds looked closely at the images. These Zorans seemed different from the ones they had fought. Less aggressive, more curious. Are they dangerous, he asked. Not now, Johnson said. They're focused on survival, building simple communities. It will be generations before they develop advanced technology again. Nelson pointed to one image. What's that structure? The screen showed a crude statue. It had a humanoid shape with 2 arms and 2 legs. We think it's meant to represent a human, Johnson said quietly. Some of them remember us, not as enemies, but as the ones who freed them from the controllers. Carter looked troubled. So they don't view the Nemesis wave as an attack? Some do, some don't, Johnson explained. It's complicated. Without the hive mind, they're developing individual perspectives. Different groups have different views. Reynolds thought about this. So we didn't wipe out their civilization. We changed it. Exactly, Johnson said. The controllers were essentially parasites using the workers as tools. We removed the parasites. Nelson wasn't convinced. That's a convenient way to justify what we did. I'm not justifying anything, Johnson said firmly. I'm telling you what we've observed. What happens next is up to us. Admiral Carter turned away from the screen. The United Nations Space Coalition is debating our next move. Some want to leave the Zorans alone, let them develop naturally. Others think we should guide them, teach them. And some want to finish what we started, Reynolds guessed. Eliminate them completely. Carter nodded. There are those who fear they'll eventually become a threat again. What do you think we should do, Admiral? Nelson asked. Carter was silent for a moment. My sister Judy believed in communication, in understanding, in peace. She died still believing that. I've been asking myself what she would want us to do now. The room was quiet. Finally, Reynolds spoke. The 12 would want us to try again, he said. To do better this time. 3 months later, Reynolds stood on the bridge of a new ship. It wasn't a warship. It was an exploration vessel, designed for science and diplomacy. Its name was, painted on the hull, Horizon 2. Nelson stood next to him, wearing the uniform of a communications officer once again. Around them, a new crew prepared for launch. Are you sure about this? She asked him quietly. Going back there? Reynolds nodded. Someone has to make contact with them. Show them that humans can be more than destroyers. Dr. Johnson joined them, carrying a small case of scientific equipment. The instruments are ready. We'll be able to study their neural development up close. Reynolds looked out at the stars. We killed 12 humans, so we erased millions of them, he said softly. Now it's time to see if both our species can find a better way forward. As the Horizon 2 moved away from Earth, Reynolds thought about the stone memorial with its 12 pillars. He had made a promise there, standing alone after everyone else had left. We won't make the same mistakes, he had whispered to the faces carved in stone. Your deaths won't just be avenged, they'll mean something more. The ship accelerated toward Zoran space. This time they carried no weapons of mass destruction. This time they came not for revenge but for understanding. Behind them, Earth continued to expand into the stars, stronger and more confident than before. Ahead of them, the former Zoran worlds held a species in transition, finding its new identity. Between them lay the possibility of something neither had achieved before: peace. Whether they would find it remained to be seen. But for the first time, since the Horizon was destroyed, both humans and Zorans had a chance to write a different story.